Gaming Bolt presents 15 PS4 games so hard you will delete them in frustration. There's something to be said for a difficult game. They can challenge you to hone your skills, teach you the rewards of disciplined practice, and defeating a particularly difficult boss or segment can feel truly rewarding upon completion. There are some games though that are a breed apart, that require such persistence and will that you're likely to give up at the first level rather than struggle on. To help new users on the PS4 who might not be familiar with these titles, we've compiled a list you should steer clear of unless you are truly dedicated. Furi. There's no leveling up, grinding, or equipment to find in this game, only a limited set of skills and the boss's mechanics. The trouble with Furi is that each boss has only one real way to be defeated, and each of their attacks has a right response. This means that as you learn a boss's mechanics and set about defeating them, you'll need to repeat the same tasks over and over again, going through the motions of a fight many times in order to nail the unforgiving sequence of events. This might be forgivable in a game with precise enough controls, but with Furi, you don't have that precision, and you'll likely spend hours wishing you could smash something if you try to beat this game. Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a game that expects a lot from its players. The mechanics of combat are not always clear, and the game expects that you'll be smart and quick enough to figure them out through persistence and determination. If you're unwilling to spend much of your time dead, this game is not for you. And if you're looking for an experience that makes you feel like an unstoppable badass, then Bloodborne will certainly disappoint. Dark Souls 3. The Dark Souls games live on their reputation of incredibly difficult combat and deeply unforgiving mechanics. Mistime your dodges in this game and you'll be kicked back to the loading screen. While the game rewards smart gameplay, it might ask a tad much from a casual audience. Dark Souls is definitely not a game for the faint of heart, and players should know they're in for a slog before buying. N++. N++ is a platforming game in which the player follows gravitational distortions that pull them through the levels. The game requires not only that players move with speed and precision, but also that they plan microseconds in advance, as the character follows mouse inputs at a delay. Players must balance this delay and the game's numerous obstacles and traps in a manner that grows progressively more difficult as the player advances. By the end, the game is truly table-flipping material. XCOM 2. In XCOM 2, your decisions as a commanding officer have permanent effects. If a soldier dies under your watch, they're gone forever, along with their combat experience. Commanders have to strike a balance between sheltering their best soldiers and applying those soldiers to the appropriate circumstances is a vital part of completing missions. XCOM 2 doesn't make it easy though, and players should be prepared to lose valuable assets along the way. The balance must be carefully struck though, as you can easily make the game impossible if you lose too many of your best operators. Surgeon Simulator. This PlayStation VR title asks that players perform surgery on a hapless patient through the finicky controls of a VR input. It's easy to drop and throw objects on accident, leading to scalpels embedded in organs and hearts thrown out the window. While this might be amusing the first time it happens, the fun will soon be over when you're forced to repeat the procedure over and over again until you get it right. The Evil Within. The Evil Within is a game that takes survival horror to a new level. The enemies are varied, horrifying, and at times more powerful than the player. To make the situation worse, ammunition is scarce, such that it's likely you'll be forced at some point to engage enemies of a certain type with the wrong loadout. Imagine all you have is a sniper rifle, and you've stepped into a room filled with zombies, and the last checkpoint was 30 minutes back. If that sounds good to you, then by all means, jump into this unforgiving title. But if you like beating games in a reasonable amount of time, this might not be the one for you. Spelunky. Spelunky's procedurally generated dungeons are both unforgiving and unpredictable. After a long fall, it's possible you'll land safely in a pool of water, or maybe you'll land in a pit of spikes. The trouble with these dungeons is that they're randomly generated, so dying in one is not necessarily a learning experience. Instead, it's the start of something new, but it can seem like you're making no progress as you die time and time again in dungeons you've never seen before. Beating Spelunky is not a matter of learning the game, so much as it is about developing the skills and reflexes necessary to beat it. If you're not interested in developing those skills, steer clear. Titan Souls. The boss fights in Titan Souls are entirely unforgiving, and you may often die before you've even realized you've initiated the encounter. With your one arrow, you have to land a perfect shot on each boss, and this fact, along with the ease of which you can die, make much of the game feel more like a fluke than a testament to your abilities. At times, a boss may die on your first shot. At others, you'll die the second you walk through the door. This can make the game extremely frustrating, as it has very little to do with how good you are and often has more to do with your luck in the moment. Nioh. Nioh is a game that takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls, which should tell you something about how accommodating it is to new players. Nioh's combat is intense and varied, and rarely as straightforward as it seems. An enemy may appear to not know you are approaching to kill it, only for you to realize that it is you who didn't know an enemy was preparing an ambush, and that your target was a decoy. Even if you don't get ganked, combat is still a difficult undertaking, and players should be ready to die in horrible ways regularly. The Witness. The Witness is a puzzle game that requires players not only to find answers, but also to know what kind of questions they need to ask in order to find them. Many of the game's puzzles require that you backtrack or move on in order to find the information you need in order to solve the puzzle. The key that you need to complete a labyrinth may lie just up the road, but if you never think to take that path, you won't find it. For those interested in spending a great deal of time and energy exploring the Witness's island in search of the answers, it might be a worthy task, but for anyone sitting down after a long day at work hoping to blow off steam, it might be a nightmare. Hotline Miami 2. This top-down shooter will have you smashing your keyboard in no time. As you move through the game's blueprint levels, hordes of enemies stand poised to shoot, stab, or bludgeon you to death, and at any moment, you're just a hit or two away from death. Death will be your constant companion as you work your way through this game, and if you prefer him not to be, then you should definitely find something else to play. Salt and Sanctuary. Salt and Sanctuary is what you get if you take Dark Souls and compress it into a two-dimensional space. If there's a theme in this list, it's that Dark Souls has spawned a whole genre of games truly hostile towards casual audiences, or even towards audiences that just want to have a good time without getting their faces stomped in every few seconds. Salt and Sanctuary is true to this genre. Making a mistake in this game will get you killed. Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy is an extremely difficult reimagining of Super Mario Bros. The game has just two mechanics, run and jump. These are the only tools you're granted in your quest to save Bandage Girl, and you'll face a dizzying array of traps and enemies along the way. Touch a saw blade or let a monster touch you and you'll be dead. To make matters worse, there are no checkpoints during the game's stages, so if you make a mistake, you should be prepared to return to the stage's beginning. For those who grew up with the Mario Brothers, Super Meat Boy may be a worthy successor, but younger generations surely have better things to play than this game's levels over and over again. Rogue Legacy. Rogue Legacy is a roguelike in which each time you die, one of your heirs takes up the mantle of continuing the adventure you started. As you might expect from a game that takes your death as its central mechanic, dying is frequent and permanent. Your heir will be starting the adventure from the beginning, grinding their way through the castle and leveling up until they face the challenges that got your first character killed. It may be a good way to rack up hours spent in game, but for any other purpose, it's a long slog to get to the finish. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at Gaming Vault, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.